Alright guys, my name is Metagoblin and today we are going to be counting down the top 10 items from Classic WoW that were so powerful that they actually were used in the Burning Crusade. Some of them were even used for the entirety of the Burning Crusade's lifetime because they were so powerful. Some of these items will still be powerful today if the Burning Crusade was released in the future. Other items won't be because they were basically hotfixed since they were so overpowered. Some of these items are very big, powerful items, others are very small items with very specific usefulness that made certain boss mechanics very trivial and had to be like hotfixed. Just before I jump in guys, please do give me a quick follow on Twitch if you want to catch any of my live streams. Anyway, let's start counting down these items. So the first item we have on this list is the Mark of a Champion. There's two versions of this item, one that increases spell power by 85 specifically against undead and demon targets, and then the one that increases attack power by 150 again on specifically undead and demon targets. This is actually an Argent Dawn trinket. As you can see, if you equip it, you get the little salute animation and the spell effect. This is basically the quest reward from the last quest in Naxxramas that basically tells you to go and kill Kel'Thuzad, turn in his phylactery, and then you get these two trinkets as a reward. Now the reason why this is so overpowered is because for some reason, because these items specifically only affect undead and demon targets, their effect is essentially the stats on them is massively boosted. I mean, let's compare this item to Illidan Stormrage loot. So 150 attack power and 85 spell power. You've got a trinket here from Gul'dan which increases spell power by 55. Fair enough, there is a proc effect there as well and the hit rating and everything like that. But even this headplate here, this Cursed Vision, which is probably Rogue Feral Druid gear, increases attack power by 108, and this trinket here flat out increases your attack power by 150. And obviously you're probably thinking, well, it only affects undead and demon targets, and well, you just got to think about what is the Burning Crusade all about. It's all about demons. Literally everything you are killing in a Burning Crusade probably is going to be a demon. So this trinket actually becomes massively best in slot for near enough the whole lifetime of the Burning Crusade, particularly if you get unlucky with trinket drops, because they normally do have low drop chances, so it is quite difficult to get good trinket drops. But nonetheless, you definitely want to be keeping this from Classic WoW if we ever progress into the Burning Crusade, because it's going to be a ridiculous damage boost against pretty much majority of bosses in the Burning Crusade. So the second item on this list, we have a druid trinket from Blackwing Lair called the Rune Metamorphosis. So if we read the tooltip, the original tooltip, it decreases the mana cost of all druid shapeshifting forms by 100% for 20 seconds. So all your shapeshifting forms will basically be completely free of mana. But as you can see here, the new tooltip, which was hotfixed in the lifetime of the Burning Crusade, but not at the beginning of the Burning Crusade, it's set to a set number by reducing the mana cost by 550 rather than 100%. Next, let me draw your attention to the Tier 4 set bonus. Your helpful spells have a chance to restore mana by 120. This basically meant that your forms did count actually as a helpful spell, which means if you have 100% reduction in mana cost of your forms, but you have a tier set bonus which basically increases your mana by 120 every time you use a bear form. This basically meant what healers used to do in arena or even in a raiding environment. You used to basically spam form spells to get 120 mana each time they pressed it, and obviously you can press it by about 20 times in the space of 20 seconds, which means 20 times 120 mana, you're easily looking at nearly 2,500 mana gained within 20 seconds on top of your MP5 effect. So this was a ridiculously useful trick to use in any arena situation or basically any raiding environment during a Burning Crusade. The next item we have on the list is Styleen's Impeding Scarab, which is largely considered one of the best in slot trinkets for the very early phases of the Burning Crusade. If you look at it on Wowhead, there are a few comments basically stating that. This was largely because during the early phases of the Burning Crusade there weren't many great tanking trinket options for you, and obviously they had limited availability and low drop chance, which means that this trinket actually had some use. Another reason why is because if you look at the original stats state that increases the block chance by 5%, increases the block value of your shield by 24, and increases your defense by 13. But if you look at the current stats, as you look on the character here, increases your block rating by 24, which is a slight reduction, increases your block value of your shield by 48, which is double, and then increases your defense rating by 13, which is again nearly double. So for some reason this old trinket basically was totally buffed. It still increases your block chance by an extra 3%, the block value of your shield, which is a total amount of damage that a block will actually reduce on a melee hit, that goes up by 48, and if you compare that to other items in a similar range, you got 42 on the shield of impenetrable darkness from Nightbane and Karazhan. You do have items like big plate items which will basically kind of like double that amount, but again, like, it is a trinket, so you're basically getting half of what like a max item would actually give you, and if you stack it with everything else, you're basically getting really good block value on your shield. The next item we have is a very familiar item, Thunderfury Blessed Blade of the Windseeker. So the main reason why this item was used even as late as patch 2.4.3 when the Sunwell raid was released is mainly because of the AoE threat that it will provide for a tank, because warriors essentially have always struggled with AoE threat, you know, because normally they have to switch target and basically spam Sunderstrike, which is kind of irritating, and basically building up AoE threat can be a very slow process, and if other DPS are AoEing like mad, then they're very likely to pull aggro from a protection tank, which is largely why protection paladins became so sought after and so strong during a Burning Crusade, because they fixed the mana issues, which we'll make a video about soon, fixed the mana issues for protection paladin, which meant paladins could just spam loads of AoE heal it, like AoE holy damage spells, which meant their AoE threat was massively stronger than the warriors, which is why warriors did actually like to keep Thunderfury around for their AoE threat when dealing with ad packs, or even just like trash between certain bosses, just to make their lives a little bit easier when it came to generating AoE threat, maybe sometime even in dungeons as well on particular bosses and particular situations. The next item on this list is probably the least significant item on the list, but nonetheless it became very overpowered on particular boss fights because it was able to remove a bleed effect. And it's actually the Luffa trinket, which you get from a very simple quest reward in the Searing Gorge. It has a very unique effect to remove a bleed effect, which you cannot normally do, I'm pretty sure, by any class ability in the game and the history of World of Warcraft. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure you cannot remove a bleed effect. You can remove poisons and diseases and all that kind of thing. But bleed effects, some bleed effects from raid bosses are pretty lethal, so the ability to quickly remove a bleed effect, primarily for, even if, you know, I say primarily for a tank, because tanks have very nasty stacking debuffs, and one of them probably was a bleed effect in the Burning Crusade, and you're very quickly able to remove it with Luffa. So this made some bosses extremely easy in the Burning Crusade, which is why they had to hotfix it. As you can see on the new flavor text, will not work on bleeds cast by enemies over level 60, so that's the hotfix that they had to add basically to nerf this item. So for number 6 on this list, we actually have an enchant rather than an item, because we have Enchant Gloves -Fret. So this was the best in slot glove enchant all the way until Cataclysm. It must have been nerfed in Cataclysm or something. I don't remember using it in Cataclysm, but maybe people did use it in Cataclysm. But I remember I used to tank on a protection paladin during Wrath of the Lich King, and my guild leader told me to go to AQ40 to basically solo the boss. Well, I can't remember if I soloed the boss or I did the boss with a few other people, and I got this specifically to get this formula and enchant my gloves with this Fret enchant in order to optimise my threat generation, clearing Wrath of the Lich King content. So obviously this glove enchant was still ridiculously powerful all the way through the Burning Crusade content. So for the 7th item on this list, I have the Scarab brooch, and I've been messing around with it a little bit because I noticed that it hasn't been nerfed in Wrath of the Lich King, and I've actually found out by my testing that this item is very easily ridiculously useful in Wrath of the Lich King as well, and that's because it totally scales to the amount that you can actually heal. If you look at the flavor text properly, your magical heal effects provide the target with a shield that absorbs damage equal to 15% of the amount healed for 30 seconds. Okay, and each time you heal, basically you get a stackable shield which just keeps on going on and on. I'll show you the item now. Like if I click it here, and if I keep casting a Holy Light spell, I get this proc, which is basically the persistent shield. Say it falls off, it only lasts 10 seconds, but if I prop up heal on again, it just goes on again, and this lasts for 30 seconds, so you basically got an infinite shield that you can keep applying onto the tank whenever you cast a heal. And if you actually calculated it, and one Holy Light at Wrath of the Lich King level would have provided 3k extra shield absorb on top of every single Holy Light. I think Holy Light healing is about 16k, so 16k plus 3k on every single Holy Light, and even, you know, so you can definitely see how this trinket is pretty ridiculously overpowered, because I'm even making use of it right now in Wrath of the Lich King. So that is definitely something to watch out for if TBC or Wrath of the Lich King servers ever actually are released. The next item on this list we have is another small item, the Elemental Sharpening Stone, which back in vanilla increased your melee critical strike chance by 2%. So this was a fairly useful item throughout the Burning Crusade's lifetime, mainly because it was much cheaper to make than the Adamantium Sharpening Stone alternative, which increased your weapon damage by 12 and your melee critical strike chance by 14. So interestingly, the Elemental Sharpening Stone did double the amount of crit chance as the upgraded level, even though it was technically a vanilla item rather than a Burning Crusade item. And I think a lot of classes basically prefer to stack up their crit chance as much as humanly possible rather than going for the flat damage bonus, and also it was just a great cheap option, so it was a decent item for you to use throughout the Burning Crusade's lifetime. Not as good as the Adamantium Sharpening Stone, but like a cheaper, still pretty good option. For number 9, we're going to be talking about the Ironfoe and Swift Hand of Justice combo. The reason why these items are still pretty good in the Burning Crusade is because how your stats basically scale up extra weapon attacks. If you think about it, if you're doing an extra weapon attack, it doesn't matter like the damage of the weapon, because the damage of the weapon is actually going to scale up depending on your stats. So when you're getting Burning Crusade gear, you're massively increasing your attack power, you're going to be increasing the damage of Ironfoe. But because the proc is based entirely on your initial weapon damage, that extra weapon damage that you're getting from the proc, which is 2 in case of Ironfoe, and obviously extra 1 from Hand of Justice, you're essentially getting a massive boost to your DPS. I'm not saying this was an incredibly amazing option for Fury Warriors and tanks to go for, but nonetheless few people did prefer to go for it because of the nice RNG proc rate of that Ironfoe, and some people did see some pretty significant DPS numbers. You know, if you didn't have a really good weapon at the time because you're really unlucky with drops from heroics or normal dungeons before you go into a raid, then Ironfoe is a great item to just keep hold of, especially Hand of Justice as well. Hand of Justice, you can, you know, I think a lot of people did actually, from what I'm basically reading on forum posts, is Hand of Justice was actually used for a long time during the early phases of the Burning Crusade as well. Again, people just simply didn't have amazing options because there wasn't any amazing options out there for them. These items obviously have great interactions with particular talents like sword specialization for the hunter, for the warrior and the rogue, and then reckoning for paladin as well, and you know, stuff like that. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is the tier 3 sets, particularly their set bonuses, because from the research I've done and the forums that I've read, apparently a lot of people used to basically deck their characters out in tier 3 sets rather than equipping like, I don't know, like heroic and pre-raid best in slot gear for certain, the early raids during the Burning Crusade, because the set bonuses themselves were so ridiculously overpowered. And if you read the set bonuses, you start to understand why, because they essentially will scale with the increased stats of your character gaining levels. For instance, a lot of the effects are based entirely on the percentage, so if you look at the 8 set bonus here for Druid, on Healing Touch critical hits you regain 30% of the mana cost of the spell. So obviously the mana cost of the spell increased as you gained levels and gained extra ranks of that cast, and then with this set bonus you're refunding a lot of the mana that you spent on it. If you look at the 2 set bonus as well, which will basically mean you have to wear loads of tier 3, the effect, I don't know how this works, but if you put rejuvenation on a tank, it has a chance to give him 2 rage, which sounds pretty decent. If you look at the hunter, there's basically an effect that increases rapid fire duration by 4 seconds, and you only have to equip 2 pieces, so again, that's pretty ridiculously overpowered. For mage here, we have a reduction of the evocation cooldown, only need to equip 2 pieces, and then the 6th piece bonus, your damaging spells have a chance to cause the target to take up to 200 increased damage from subsequent spells. Now I don't know if that's a raid-wide debuff, so if it is a raid-wide debuff, that's obviously going to be ridiculously useful. The paladin ones are not actually that useful. I'm pretty sure the priest one here gives a 500 damage shield whenever you crit with a spell, and a reduction of threat, so you really cannot complain by that. There's some more cool ones. I think for the rogue, if you look, there is basically a chance to restore 5 energy on critical effects, a reduced threat cost, and then Eviscerate has there's like a proc with Eviscerate, which basically increases the chance to get on a 100% critical hit chance on your next ability. So, you know, that's pretty ridiculous again. Shamans here have a 19 MP5 effect when they have Lightning Shield active, which is obviously pretty strong. And I think that's the last one that's significant. I can't remember if there's a good Warlock one. Oh yeah, the reduction of the health cost of lifetime, that's going to be pretty good for mana generation. Your spells hits generate 25% less threat, which again is pretty cool. So these set bonuses basically scale up to the character when he, you know, gains level and power as he gets to level 70. I'm pretty sure all of these set bonuses were actually nerfed at some point. I can't remember when, but they made old set bonuses totally inactive on, like, well, I think on retail, if you look now, if you've equipped any of the old sets from old raids, the tier bonuses are just totally disabled, because they knew that all these set bonuses, especially when you were able to start obtaining the tier 3 sets from the black market when Mr. Pandaria was released, there was obviously potential for you to exploit some of the 2 set bonuses in PvP and stuff like that because of their ridiculous overpoweredness of the set bonuses. And obviously they had to be totally removed. But anyway guys, that is where I am going to end the video. My name is Metagoblin, and to my next video, ciao.